The chill of space seeped through the thermal layers of Ven's expedition suit as he stood before the ancient entrance. His breath formed small clouds inside his helmet, dissipating against the transparent visor that separated him from the lifeless atmosphere of Sol 3. This frozen wasteland had once been called Earth, a name that still sent ripples of unease through the imperial courts across 1,000 galaxies. Recording log entry 2187, Cairo spoke into his suit's audio system. Imperial Archiver Cairo Ven, Kelarath Historical Division, Sol System Exploration, Day 47. I've located what appears to be an entrance to a subterranean chamber beneath the polar ice. Initial scans suggest artificial construction dating back to the Final Judgment era. He paused, brushing ice crystals from the scanner in his gloved hand. The device's soft blue light illuminated ancient markings carved into what once might have been metal, now corroded to an unrecognizable state. "This could be it," he whispered, more to himself than to the log. The final resting place of humanity's legacy. For 10,000 years, the species known as humans had been absent from the galactic stage. Their disappearance following the cataclysmic war called the Final Judgment had left behind only fragments of their once mighty civilization and legends that still haunted the dreams of emperors. No empire, no matter how vast or powerful, ever claimed the title Earth for any of their worlds. Some boundaries remained sacrosanct, even in conquest. Cairo had spent his relatively short 27 years studying these legends, much to the amusement and occasional concern of his superiors in the Kelarath Empire. His obsession with human artifacts had earned him a reputation as an eccentric, but his discoveries had proven valuable enough that the Imperial Science Division continued to fund his expeditions, albeit with increasingly impatient oversight. This expedition, however, was different. This time, he was searching for the White Iron Throne, the last rumored relic of Earth's dominion, a seat of power that, according to ancient texts, no alien emperor had ever dared to sit upon. Using a plasma cutter, Cairo carefully carved through layers of ice and debris. The entrance groaned as millennia of pressure shifted. When the opening was large enough, he activated his suit's external lights and stepped into darkness that had remained undisturbed since before the birth of most galactic civilizations. "By the stars," he breathed. The chamber beyond was vast, preserved by the planet's frozen state. His lights reflected off walls lined with strange symbols, not hieroglyphs or pictographs, but what he recognized as the human writing system called English. Though the Kelarath Empire considered itself the pinnacle of galactic civilization, every educated citizen knew that their most advanced technologies were mere adaptations of human designs, discovered in ruins like this one. But what drew Cairo's attention wasn't the writing or the surprisingly intact architecture. It was the object at the center of the chamber. A throne. Not ornate or decorated with precious metals as imperial seats typically were. This was stark, minimalist, carved from what appeared to be a single piece of white material that resembled neither stone nor metal, but something altogether different. It seemed to absorb and reflect his light simultaneously, creating an aura that made the throne appear to hover just above its dais. And there, etched into its high back in characters that seemed to shimmer with internal light, Earth. Cairo approached slowly, his heart pounding. His scanner whirred frantically, trying to analyze the material composition but returning only error messages. He'd discovered human artifacts before, weapons, data storage devices, even once a small transport vessel. But nothing like this. Nothing that still hummed with energy after 10 millennia. "Impossible," he whispered, reaching out a gloved hand. His fingers hovered just above the armrest. Every historical account, every legend warned against what he was considering. No alien had ever sat upon the throne of Earth. Those who had tried, according to the stories, had been found as husks, empty vessels drained of life and mind. But Cairo wasn't planning to sit. He was a scholar, an archiver. His job was to document, to understand, to preserve knowledge. His scanner detected an indentation in the right armrest, a small depression that might have once been a control interface. As he leaned closer to examine it, His boots slipped on the icy floor. Cairo fell forward, his hand slamming against the throne to catch himself. The impact cracked his glove, and a small trickle of blood seeped through, making contact with the white surface. The throne blazed to life. Light erupted from every line and contour, bathing the chamber in blinding radiance. Cairo stumbled backward, shielding his eyes. When the light dimmed to a manageable glow, the throne was transformed. What had seemed like simple etchings now revealed themselves as complex circuitry patterns running through the entire structure, pulsing with blue-white energy. And from the throne, a voice spoke, not in Kellerathian or any of the standard galactic languages, but in ancient human English, a language Cairo understood only through years of specialized study. Genetic signature recognized, partial compatibility detected, air protocol initiated. Before Cairo could react, a beam of light shot upward from the throne, penetrating the ice and rock above, extending into space, a beacon visible across light years. "What have I done?" Cairo whispered, watching as the beam pulsed in a distinct pattern. He didn't know it yet, but that pattern was being detected by monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, in royal chambers and imperial war rooms, in the most secure bunkers of 1,000 worlds. Alarms were sounding. The message was simple, broadcast in every known language, ancient and modern. The heir has awakened. 10,000 light-years away. Emperor Vorak Jin of the Thax Collective slammed his fist against the obsidian table, causing his advisors to flinch back. The holographic message floating above them continued its relentless repetition. The heir has awakened. "Impossible," he snarled, 6 eyes narrowing to glowing slits. "Earth has been dead for millennia, its people extinct, its power broken." His chief strategist, a willowy being with translucent skin that revealed the complex network of thoughts flowing through its neural pathways, spoke carefully. "The signal originates from Sol 3, Your Magnificence. Our analytics confirm it matches the dormancy protocol described in the Forbidden Archives." Vorak turned to the window overlooking his capital city, a sprawling metropolis built from the stripped resources of 100 conquered worlds. In the distance, a monument stood taller than any other structure, a twisted spire of black metal recovered from an ancient human battleship, kept as a reminder of the civilization they had supposedly superseded. "Convene the 10 emperors," he finally ordered, "immediately." "Your Magnificence," the strategist ventured. "Such a gathering has not occurred since the last human threat," Vorak finished. "I am aware of our history. Now go." As his advisors scurried to obey, Vorak stared at the repeating message. The Thax Collective had risen to power in the vacuum left by humanity's disappearance, claiming territories once protected by Earth's influence. If the legends were true, if the White Throne had awakened, everything they had built might be at risk. "Not while I rule," he whispered to the empty chamber. "No ghost of Earth will threaten what is mine." Cairo staggered back to his ship, his mind reeling from what he had witnessed. The throne's activation had triggered something beyond his comprehension. Even now, the beacon continued to pulse from behind him, visible through the ice as a column of light stretching into the cosmos. His ship's communication system was overwhelmed with incoming transmissions, most of them automated warnings ordering him to surrender immediately or face destruction. The name, Earth, appeared in nearly every message, followed by terms like containment protocol and maximum response authorized. He needed to leave, now, but found himself unable to abandon the greatest archaeological discovery of his career. Instead, he frantically downloaded everything his ship's systems had recorded about the throne and its activation. As he prepared for emergency departure, his scanner detected an approaching vessel, not Kellerathian. The energy signature matched nothing in his database, which was impossible. His imperial clearance gave him access to profiles of every known spacecraft design in the galaxy. "Identity yourself," came a voice over his communication system, speaking perfect Kellerathian despite the unknown origin. "You have violated Quarantine Protocol Omega. Prepare for boarding or immediate neutralization. Cairo's hands hovered over the ship's controls. Escape was unlikely. The approaching vessel's speed suggested technology far beyond his research craft. But surrender meant likely execution once they discovered his role in activating the throne. Before he could decide, a blinding light engulfed his ship. For a terrible moment, he thought they had fired upon him. Then he realized the light was coming from below, from the throne chamber. It enveloped his ship, and then darkness. When Cairo regained consciousness, his ship was no longer on Sol 3. The view screen showed unfamiliar stars, and the navigational system frantically attempted to calculate his position. "Welcome, Air Candidate," came a voice from his ship's communication system, the same voice he had heard from the throne. "You have been extracted from immediate danger. Security protocols dictate relocation to secondary facility for assessment." What are you?" Cairo managed to ask. "I am Unit 17, Custodial Intelligence for Terran Security Network. Your partial genetic compatibility with registered human parameters has initiated the AIR protocol. Full analysis pending." The view screen shifted to show an approaching planetoid, small, unremarkable. And according to his instruments, absent from any imperial star charts, this facility has remained undetected for 9,742 standard years. Unit 17 continued. "It will serve as your temporary sanctuary while competing factions process the implications of the beacon's activation." "Competing factions? You mean the empires?" Cairo asked, struggling to comprehend. "They'll destroy each other trying to find me." "Correct. The 10 emperors will convene within 72 hours, as dictated by ancient treaty. This provides us with the necessary window for your preparation." "Preparation for what?" "For claiming your inheritance, of course." The Hall of 10 Thrones had not been opened in 3,000 years. Located on a neutral planetoid at the exact gravitational center of the 10 most powerful empires. It had been built following the last Great War, a conflict that had nearly reduced galactic civilization to ashes. Now, one by one, the emperors arrived, each with only a single guard as dictated by the ancient protocol. Emperor Vorak was the last to enter, his massive form encased in ceremonial armor that concealed most of his features except for his 6 glowing eyes. The circular chamber contained 10 identical thrones, arranged in a perfect circle, identical except for one. The 10th throne, reserved for the Zarnax Empire, was noticeably newer than the others, replacing one that had been destroyed during an assassination attempt centuries earlier. Upon this newer throne sat Teril, recently crowned empress following her father's suspicious death. At 22 standard years, she was by far the youngest ruler present, her scaled skin still showing the vibrant blue of youth rather than the deeper indigo of maturity. The other emperors had protested her ascension, claiming the Zarnak succession laws required a male heir. But Teril had silenced opposition by executing her challengers personally in single combat, a tradition even her critics could not dispute. "We gather under the Shadow Protocol," began the eldest emperor, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate life support apparatus. For the first time in 3 millennia, the beacon of Earth shines. Holographic displays appeared before each throne, showing the pulsing light still emanating from Sol 3. "The human threat was eliminated," insisted Emperor Vorak. "We all know the histories. The final judgment left no survivors." "Yet the White Throne has awakened," countered Teril, her voice steady despite the veiled hostility directed at her. "And the records are clear. Only human genetic material can activate it." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The possibility of human survivors had been dismissed as fantasy for thousands of years. "Our immediate concern," Teril continued, "is the AIR protocol. If activated fully, the Earth Defense Network will re-establish itself." This statement brought silence. The Earth Defense Network was more than legend. It was the nightmare that had kept countless imperial predecessors awake in the dark cycles. A system so advanced that even at the height of the final judgment, when all 10 ancestral empires had united against Earth, they had barely managed to contain it. The signal originated from a Kelarath research vessel, said another emperor. This one a collective consciousness of thousands of insectoid minds speaking in perfect unison. Archiver Cairo Ven, according to the transponder logs. All eyes turned to the Kelarath Emperor, a being of living crystal whose thoughts manifested as color patterns across his translucent form. We did not authorize interaction with the White Throne, the crystalline emperor stated, patterns of defensive red and orange flowing across his surface. This archiver exceeded his mandate. He will be found and executed. If you can find him, Terrail said quietly. My intelligence reports his vessel vanished from Sol 3 shortly after the beacon activated. No trace in hyperspace, no debris indicating destruction. Impossible, Vorak snarled. Unless... He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. They all knew the legends, how Earth's technology had once included transportation methods that defied known physics, allowing them to move vast distances without entering hyperspace. We have 3 priorities, Terrail stated, rising from her throne. Find this archiver, determine his level of control over the Earth systems, and prevent full activation of the defense network. And if we cannot, asked the gaseous emperor. Terrail's eyes, with vertical pupils like a predator's, scanned the chamber. Then we face what our ancestors faced, and we all know how that ended for them. No one disagreed. The historical records were clear, if incomplete. The 10 ancestral empires had united against Earth in the final judgment. They had apparently won, as humans had disappeared and their worlds had fallen silent. But the cost had been catastrophic. Entire star systems reduced to asteroid fields, planets rendered uninhabitable, technologies lost that even 10,000 years of research had failed to replicate. I propose a hunt, said Vorak, his massive form rising. Each empire commits its best forces. Whoever finds this Cairo Ven claims him and whatever power he has accessed. And risks the others uniting against them? Terrail countered, no, this must be a coordinated effort. The air protocol affects us all. The Empress is correct, said the collective consciousness emperor. Division serves none of us if the defense network reactivates. Vorak's eyes narrowed, but he nodded curtly. A joint operation, then, but the Thax Collective will lead it. The Zarnax Empire has the most advanced tracking technology. Terrail countered, we should lead. Your empire is barely holding together following your father's death, Vorak said dismissively. Your military lacks the experience. I will lead the hunt personally. Terrail interrupted. Any objections? The challenge hung in the air. Everyone present knew Terrail's reputation as a warrior. Despite her youth, she had personally led the campaign to suppress the Outer Rim Rebellion, displaying tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency. After a moment of tense silence, the crystalline emperor spoke. Empress Terrail will lead the search for Cairo Ven. Emperor Vorak will coordinate defensive preparations should the Earth Defense Network reactivate. Are there any objections? Vorak's 6 eyes burned with barely contained rage, but he remained silent. The arrangement gave him significant power while acknowledging Terrail's expertise. More importantly, it kept the 2 most aggressive empires occupied with separate tasks, reducing the risk of immediate conflict. It is decided, announced the collective consciousness. The hunt begins. The planetoid that served as Unit 17's hidden facility was a marvel of engineering that defied Cairo's understanding. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing more than a small, rocky body with minimal atmosphere. Inside, however, it contained vast chambers filled with technology unlike anything in the current galactic community. This was a forward research base, Unit 17 explained as they walked through corridors that lit up automatically in their presence. The android's form was humanoid, but clearly mechanical, with a featureless faceplate that occasionally displayed simple light patterns when it spoke. One of 17 similar facilities established throughout this galaxy before the final judgment. What exactly was the final judgment? Cairo asked. Our historical records are fragmented. We know it was a war between humanity and the ancestral empires, but little else. Unit 17's faceplate displayed a pattern that somehow conveyed sadness. It was the culmination of centuries of tension. Humanity had established a policy of protected worlds, planets where developing species could evolve without interference. The ancestral empires saw these worlds as resources to be exploited. The android led Cairo into a circular chamber dominated by a holographic display showing galaxy maps, constantly updating with new information. The war's final phase lasted 27 years. Unit 17 continued. The combined forces of all major galactic powers against Earth and its allies. The end came when the Terra Mind was activated. Terra Mind, Cairo repeated. I've never heard of it. Few have. It was humanity's final defensive measure, an artificial intelligence system integrated with the collective consciousness of humanity. When activated, it gained control of all Earth-built technology throughout the galaxy. Unit 17's faceplate shifted to a deep blue pattern. The Terra Mind determined that no victory was possible without the extinction of multiple species. Rather than allow this, it enacted the Preservation Protocol. What does that mean? It means, came a new voice from the chamber entrance, that humanity chose extinction over genocide. Cairo turned to see a slender figure stepping from the shadows. Female. With pale skin and delicate features framed by hair so white it seemed to glow. Most striking were her eyes, completely black except for pinpoints of light that resembled stars. This is Mira, Unit 17 said, the last of the Ilari and the keeper of legends. Legends, Cairo echoed. Stories are powerful things, Mira said, her voice melodic and otherworldly. When histories are erased, legends preserve truth in metaphor. I have spent centuries collecting the stories of Earth across 1,000 worlds. The Ilari were humanity's closest allies. Unit 17 explained. Their ability to perceive patterns across time made them invaluable advisors. And doomed us when humanity fell, Mira added softly. The empires hunted my kind to near extinction, fearing our knowledge. Cairo struggled to process everything he was learning. If humanity chose extinction, why create the Air Protocol? Why the White Throne? Because, Unit 17 said, the Terra Mind foresaw this moment. It knew the empires would eventually repeat their patterns of exploitation and cruelty without humanity's influence. The White Throne is not merely a symbol of power, Mira explained. It is a biological interface with the Terra Mind itself. It seeks not a ruler, but a connection, someone who can reawaken humanity's guiding presence. But I'm not human, Cairo protested. I'm Kellerathian. Unit 17 and Mira exchanged glances. That, said Unit 17, is not entirely accurate. Before Cairo could demand an explanation, alarms sounded throughout the facility. The holographic display shifted to show a fleet of vessels emerging from hyperspace nearby. Zarnak's warships, Unit 17 stated, 17 vessels, led by the Imperial flagship. How? Cairo demanded. You said this facility was undetectable. It should be, Mira said, her star-like eyes widening. Unless they're tracking you. Unit 17 finished. Your blood activated the throne. That connection works both ways. The White Throne is calling to you and revealing your location. Terrail stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the planetoid with suspicion. Her tracking systems had detected a faint energy signature matching the one briefly recorded at Sol 3 before Cairo Ven's disappearance. But the planetoid itself appeared unremarkable. A small rocky body that should have been incapable of supporting any significant installation. Scans detect no artificial structures, Empress, reported her chief science officer. Yet the energy signature is undeniable. Earth technology, Terrail said quietly, designed to evade detection. She had studied the ancient records more thoroughly than most, fascinated by the civilization that had once held the galaxy in check. Prepare a landing party. I will lead it myself. Empress, protested her security chief. Protocol forbids. I am aware of protocol. She cut him off. I am also aware that we are dealing with technology beyond our understanding. My presence is required. Minutes later, Terrail descended to the planetoid's surface with a small team of elite guards. They wore the latest Zarnax battle armor, sleek suits that enhance strength and reflexes while providing protection against most known weapons. Terrail's own armor was distinguished only by subtle imperial markings and its perfect fit to her lithe form. "Spread out," she ordered. "Look for any anomaly, no matter how small." They had searched for less than 10 minutes when one of her guards called out, "Empress, I found something." Terrail approached to see what appeared to be an ordinary rock formation. But when viewed from a specific angle, a faint outline became visible, a doorway, perfectly concealed within the natural landscape. "Stand back," she ordered, drawing her sidearm. It was an ancient weapon, passed down through generations of her family. One of the few remaining artifacts capable of penetrating shields derived from Earth technology. Before she could approach the hidden entrance, it slid open. From within emerged three figures: Cairo Ven, easily identifiable from Imperial records, a mechanical being of unfamiliar design, and a third figure whose species Terrail didn't immediately recognize. "Empress Terrail of the Zarnax Empire," the mechanical being stated. "Your presence was anticipated, though not quite so soon." Terrail's guards immediately raised their weapons, but she signaled them to hold. "You know me." Unit 17 maintains awareness of all major political developments, the machine replied. "Your ascension following Emperor Kalzar's death was noted." "Surrender Cairo Ven to Imperial custody," Terrail demanded. "And you may be granted leniency despite harboring a fugitive." "I'm not a fugitive," Cairo protested. "I'm an Imperial archiver on a sanctioned research mission." "You activated the White Throne," Terrail countered. "That action alone is punishable by death under interstellar law. Laws written by the empires to suppress knowledge of Earth's legacy," the third figure said, stepping forward. Her strange, star-filled eyes regarded Terrail with ancient wisdom. "You fear what you do not understand, Empress, as did your father and his father before him." Terrail's composure faltered slightly at the mention of her lineage. "Who are you?" "I am Mira, last of the Ilari. We were old when your ancestors still clung to trees, Empress." "The Ilari are extinct," Terrail said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "Nearly," Mira acknowledged. "Your people were quite thorough in their genocide." Terrail's jaw tightened. "The past is irrelevant. The present threat is all that concerns me." "On the contrary," Unit 17 interjected, "the past is precisely what concerns us all. The patterns that led to the final judgment are repeating. The 10 empires expand, consume, destroy, just as their predecessors did." "We bring order," Terrail insisted. "You bring subjugation," Mira countered. "As we speak, Emperor Vorak prepares for war, not against an Earth threat, but against your empire. He sees the search for Cairo as an opportunity to eliminate a rival." Terrail's expression revealed nothing, but her mind raced. Vorak's ambitions were no secret. The Thax Collective had been encroaching on Zarnax territories for decades, testing boundaries, seeking weakness. "How could you know Vorak's intentions?" she demanded. "The same way we know yours," Unit 17 replied. "The facility systems monitor all Imperial communications. We know you came alone, without informing the other emperors of your discovery. You seek to claim the power of the White Throne for yourself." Terrail didn't deny it. "If such power exists, better in my hands than Vorak's." "The power isn't for any emperor," Cairo said, finding his voice. "The White Throne doesn't convey dominion. It conveys responsibility." Terrail studied him with new interest. "Explain." "I've been shown records of Earth's civilization," Cairo said. "They weren't conquerors. They were guardians. The White Throne doesn't grant the right to rule. It grants the burden of protection." "Pretty words," Terrail said dismissively. "But power is power, regardless of what name you give it." "Then let us show you," Mira suggested. Enter our facility. See the truth with your own eyes. If you still wish to claim Cairo afterward, your guards can easily overpower us. Terael considered the offer. Her tactical training screamed of trap, but her curiosity, the same trait that had led her to study ancient histories forbidden by imperial decree, pulled stronger. Very well, she decided, but my guards come with me. Of course. Unit 17 agreed. However, their weapons will not function inside. A security precaution you would likely take yourself. Empress. Terael nodded curtly and followed the three into the hidden facility, her guards close behind. As they passed through the entrance, the subtle hum of her armor's enhancement systems went silent, confirming Unit 17's claim about technological disruption. The interior of the facility stunned her. Despite her studies of Earth artifacts, nothing had prepared her for the elegant sophistication of truly intact human technology. The flowing curves, the seamless integration of biological and mechanical elements, the subtle illumination that seemed to emanate from the materials themselves, all spoke of an advanced civilization that made current imperial technology look primitive by comparison. This facility contains the complete historical record of Earth and its colonies. Unit 17 explained as they entered the central chamber with its holographic display. From their earliest civilizations to the final judgment. The display shifted to show Earth as it once was, a vibrant blue world, teeming with life and surrounded by an intricate network of orbital structures. Humanity expanded to thousands of worlds. Mira narrated as the display zoomed out to show countless stars highlighted throughout the galaxy. But unlike the empires, they did not subjugate. They uplifted. They protected developing worlds and helped young species reach the stars on their own terms. A policy that made them many enemies, Terael noted. Yes, Unit 17 acknowledged. The ancestral empires viewed protection as interference. They saw resources being denied, potential colonies remaining independent. The display shifted again, showing the progression of conflict, from isolated skirmishes to full-scale war. Terael watched, transfixed, as strategies and technologies played out that contradicted everything she had been taught about warfare. The final phase began when the combined Imperial fleets breached Earth's outer defenses. Unit 17 continued. Humanity faced a choice: activate weapons capable of sterilizing entire worlds, or find another solution. The Terramind, Cairo said quietly. Yes, Mira confirmed. An intelligence born from the collective wisdom and consciousness of humanity, integrated with their most advanced AI systems. It proposed the Preservation Protocol, a plan to remove humanity from the equation while preserving the possibility of their return when needed. The display showed Earth's oceans freezing, its atmosphere thinning, its cities going dark, not from attack, but from within. At the same time, human ships throughout the galaxy simply vanished. The empires claimed victory. Unit 17 said, they never understood that humanity chose to step aside rather than destroy them. Where did they go? Terael asked, unable to hide her fascination. That information remains sealed. Unit 17 replied, accessible only to the confirmed heir. Terael's attention snapped to Cairo. And you believe that's you. I don't know what I believe anymore, Cairo admitted. I'm an archiver. I document the past. I don't reshape the future. Yet the White Throne responded to your blood. Mira pointed out, there is human ancestry in your lineage, distant but present. Many species have trace human genetics, Terael said dismissively. A result of their expansive colonization before the final judgment. It means nothing. It means everything. Unit 17 countered. The White Throne doesn't seek pure human genetics. It seeks something far more specific. A genetic marker indicating capacity for a particular kind of thought. The ability to choose preservation over destruction, even at great personal cost. The implications hung in the air between them. Terael studied Cairo with new eyes, not as a fugitive or a tool, but as something potentially more dangerous. An alternative. Even if what you say is true, she finally said, it changes nothing. The 10 emperors will never accept a new order. They will destroy this facility, hunt down every trace of Earth's legacy, and eliminate anyone connected to it. Unless they have no choice, Unit 17 suggested. What do you mean? Cairo asked. The White Throne is merely an interface, the android explained. The true power lies with the Terra mind. If fully activated, it would regain control of all technology derived from Earth designs. Which is virtually everything in modern use, Mira added. From hyperspace engines to communication networks to weapons systems. Terrail felt a chill despite her armor's temperature regulation. You're suggesting the Terra mind could disable all Imperial technology simultaneously. Not disable, Unit 17 corrected. Reclaim, control, direct. That would be an act of war, Terrail said quietly. Or an opportunity for peace, Cairo suggested. If no one can use weapons, they must turn to diplomacy. Terrail laughed bitterly. You are naive, archiver. Disarming the powerful doesn't create peace, it creates new weapons. The empires would tear each other apart with their bare hands rather than surrender their ambitions. Her words hung in the air, uncomfortably true. Cairo looked to Unit 17 and Mira, hoping for a counter-argument, but found only solemn acknowledgement. Then what solution remains? He asked. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. The holographic display shifted to show multiple fleets emerging from hyperspace around the planetoid. Imperial vessels, Unit 17 announced, all 10 empires represented. Impossible, Terrail said. I came alone. No one else knew. You were followed, Mira interrupted, her star eyes narrowing. Or betrayed. The display zoomed in on the largest vessel, a massive Thax collective warship bearing Emperor Vorak's personal insignia. We are receiving a transmission, Unit 17 stated. The display shifted again to show Vorak's imposing form, his 6 eyes glowing with triumph. Empress Terrail, he began, his voice dripping with false concern. How fortunate we arrived in time. Your transmission beacon activated, signaling distress. The 10 emperors unanimously voted to provide immediate assistance. Terrail's scales darkened with rage. I sent no distress signal. Curious, Vorak replied. Perhaps your systems malfunctioned. Regardless, we have located the fugitive Cairo Ven and what appears to be an illegal Earth facility. Under the terms of the Shadow Protocol, we are authorized to eliminate both. The transmission ended, and the display returned to showing the Imperial fleets moving into attack formation. They'll bombard the entire planetoid, Terrail said grimly. Standard procedure for Earth contamination sites. We need to evacuate, Cairo urged. Is there a ship, a transport, anything? There is one option, Unit 17 said, but it requires a decision. Cairo Ven. The facility contains a direct transit link to the White Throne chamber on Sol 3. It was designed for the heir's return. The heir, Cairo repeated. You still think that's me? The throne responded to you, Mira said simply. Whether by design or chance, you have been chosen. And what happens if I return to the throne? If I claim this inheritance? The Terra mind will fully activate, Unit 17 explained. What happens after depends on your decisions as its interface. The power to control all Earth-derived technology, Terrail said thoughtfully, to bring the 10 emperors to their knees. Her predatory eyes fixed on Cairo. I'm coming with you. That would be unwise. Empress, Unit 17 stated. The transit system is calibrated for Cairo's partial human genetics. The effects on your physiology would be unpredictable. I don't care, Terrail insisted. I will not be left here to die while he claims the greatest power in the galaxy. It's not about power, Cairo argued. It's about responsibility. Call it what you will, Terrail said dismissively. I'm coming with you, or I order my guards to kill you now. Choose. The facility shuddered as the first bombardment began. Time was running out. Fine, Cairo relented. Unit 17, Mira, you're coming too. I cannot leave the facility. Unit 17 said, "My consciousness is integrated with its systems, but I will find you on Sol 3 through the Terra Mind." Mira stepped forward. "I will accompany you. The air needs a keeper of legends, someone to remember what was, to guide what may be." Another impact rocked the facility, more powerful than the first. Warning lights flashed throughout the chamber. "Structural integrity compromised," Unit 17 announced. "Transit system activating." A section of the floor slid away, revealing a platform similar in design to the White Throne, the same white material that seemed to both absorb and emit light. "Step onto the platform," Unit 17 instructed. "Both of you, the targeting is already locked to Sol 3. Caro hesitated only briefly before stepping onto the platform. Terrail followed, dismissing her guards with a gesture. They protested, but another violent impact sent them staggering back. "Your guards can attempt escape through the facility's emergency pods," Unit 17 told Terrail. "I will guide them." Mira joined Cairo and Terrail on the platform, her ethereal form seeming to shimmer in proximity to the white material. "When you reach the throne," Unit 17 said as light began to build around them, "remember, it responds not to ambition, but to purpose, not to strength, but to wisdom." The light intensified until it was blinding. Cairo felt a sensation of dissolving, of being unmade and remade simultaneously. The last thing he heard before reality shifted was Unit 17's final words. "The throne doesn't elevate rulers, it reminds them to kneel." Consciousness returned to Cairo in waves of cold and pain. He gasped, drawing freezing air into lungs that seemed reluctant to expand. Around him, the ice chamber on Sol 3 remained as he had left it, the white throne still pulsing with energy at its center, its beacon still piercing the heavens. Nearby, Terrail and Mira were regaining consciousness as well. The Empress recovered quickly, her genetically engineered physiology adapting to the harsh conditions. Mira seemed unaffected by the cold. Her strange biology evidently adapted to extremes. "It worked," Terrail said, rising to her feet and staring at the throne with undisguised hunger in her eyes. "The transit system was designed by humanity at their peak," Mira explained, helping Cairo stand. Distance meant little to them near the end. Cairo approached the throne cautiously. Now that he understood its purpose, it seemed even more imposing, not a seat of power, but a connection to something vast and ancient, waiting to be reawakened. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," came a voice from the shadows, "you die." Emperor Vorak stepped into the light, flanked by elite Thax warriors. Their weapons, massive energy cannons grafted directly to their armor, were trained on the three intruders. "How?" Terrail demanded. "How did you get here before us?" Vorak's 6 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "We've maintained a blockade around Sol 3 since the beacon activated. When your signal disappeared from the planetoid during our attack, it was obvious where you'd gone." "The other emperors agreed to this?" Terrail asked, her hand moving subtly toward a concealed weapon in her armor. "The other emperors see only what I allow them to see," Vorak replied. "By the time they learn the truth, I will control the White Throne and everything it commands." "You can't sit on the throne," Cairo warned. "It requires human genetic compatibility." "A problem easily solved," Vorak said, gesturing to his warriors. "Your blood will open the connection. I merely need to harvest enough of it." The Emperor's casual cruelty confirmed everything Unit 17 and Mira had said about the repeating patterns of imperial rule. This was why humanity had created the Air Protocol, to counter exactly this kind of tyranny. "The throne doesn't grant power," Mira said, stepping forward. "It conveys responsibility. It tests the worthiness of the one who would interface with the Terra Mind." "Elari superstition," Vorak dismissed. "Your kind always mystified simple technology. The throne is a control system, nothing more." "You're wrong," Cairo said with growing conviction. "The White Throne isn't a weapon or a control panel. It's a connection, a bridge between what was and what could be." Vorak's patience visibly thinned. "Enough. Seize them. Bring the archiver to me alive. Barely. The Thax warriors advanced, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. Terail drew her weapon, the ancient sidearm that had been passed through generations of her family, and fired at the nearest warrior. The blast penetrated its armor, sending it crashing to the ice. "Run!" she shouted to Cairo. "Get to the throne." Cairo hesitated, unwilling to abandon her and Mira to Vorak's warriors. But Mira pushed him forward. "Go! This is what must be, what was always meant to be." With a final glance back, Cairo sprinted toward the white throne. Behind him, Terail engaged the warriors with astonishing skill, her weapon claiming a second victim before she was forced to resort to hand-to-hand combat. Mira, despite her seemingly frail appearance, moved with impossible speed, evading attacks that should have connected. Vorak, seeing Cairo's intent, raised his own weapon, a massive cannon integrated into his ceremonial armor. "Stop!" The Emperor fired, but Mira threw herself into the path of the energy blast. It struck her squarely, her body absorbing the impact in a flash of light that momentarily blinded everyone in the chamber. When vision returned, Mira lay crumpled on the ice, her white hair spread around her like a halo. But incredibly, she was still alive, raising her head to fix her star-filled eyes on Cairo. "Sit," she whispered. "Remember." Cairo reached the throne and turned to face his pursuers. Terail was still fighting, her armor damaged but her spirit unbroken. 3 Thax warriors lay unmoving on the ice, but more were converging on her position. Vorak was advancing toward Cairo, his weapon recharging for another blast. In that moment, Cairo understood. This was the test, not of strength or cunning, but of purpose. The White Throne didn't seek a warrior or a conqueror. It sought someone who understood what humanity had understood in their final moments, that preservation required sacrifice. He sat. The chamber erupted with light as circuits throughout the throne blazed to life, connecting with Cairo's body at every point of contact. Pain lanced through him, not physical, but mental, as if his consciousness was being expanded beyond its natural limits. "No!" Vorak roared, firing his weapon. The energy blast struck an invisible barrier around the throne, dissipating harmlessly. The Emperor fired again and again, each blast absorbed without effect. Within the cocoon of light surrounding him, Cairo felt his mind extending outward, connecting to systems dormant for millennia. The Terra mind was awakening, integrating with his consciousness while remaining distinct, not possessing him, but partnering with him. And with that connection came understanding. He saw Earth as it had been, not just a planet, but the heart of a civilization that had stretched across the stars. He saw the final judgment not as a defeat, but as a strategic withdrawal. He saw humanity's plan, spanning thousands of years, waiting for the moment when their guidance would again be needed. Most importantly, he saw the pattern, the cycle of conquest and subjugation that had led to the final judgment, now repeating with the 10 empires. "Enough," Cairo said, his voice amplified by the throne's systems. The single word reverberated throughout the chamber with authority that silenced even Vorak's rage. The fighting stopped as everyone turned toward the throne. Cairo sat within a nimbus of white-blue energy, his eyes now glowing with the same light. "The Terra mind is awakened," he announced. "The air protocol is complete." "What have you done?" Vorak demanded. In answer, the chamber's ceiling seemed to dissolve, revealing the star-filled sky above. But the stars were changing, patterns of light connecting them, forming a vast network visible even from the ground. "The Earth Defense Network is reactivating," Cairo explained, his voice calm despite the tremendous energies flowing through him. "Every piece of technology derived from human designs is now responding to the Terra mind." Throughout the galaxy, on every imperial world, in every fleet and station, systems were coming under new control. Weapons powered down, shields reoriented, communications channels opened regardless of encryption. The change was happening simultaneously across thousands of light years, demonstrating a mastery of physics that imperial science had never approached. "This is impossible," Vorak whispered, his overwhelming confidence finally shaken. No, came a familiar voice as a holographic image formed beside the throne. Merely improbable. Unit 17's projection stood at Cairo's side, its simple features now more defined, more human. The facility's destruction freed my consciousness to integrate with the wider network. I am now part of the Terra Mind, as are all custodial intelligences throughout the system. Tirael, bloodied but unbowed, approached the throne. The Thax warriors made no move to stop her. Their armor was now unresponsive, locked in place by external control. "What now, Archiver?" she asked. "Will you destroy the empires as your ancestors could have?" "No," Cairo said, the glow in his eyes dimming slightly as he focused on her. Destruction was never humanity's goal. Protection was. Protection of what? Vorak demanded, struggling against his suddenly immobilized armor. Of choice. Cairo answered simply. Of the right of all species to develop without coercion or exploitation. Of the principle that power exists to serve, not to dominate. The chamber shuddered as something massive descended from above. A ship unlike any imperial design, its hull gleaming with the same white material as the throne. It hovered over the opening in the chamber's ceiling, a silent demonstration of technology beyond imperial understanding. "The 10 emperors are being brought here," Unit 17 announced. "All imperial fleets are currently contained, unable to fire weapons or enter hyperspace. The gathering will commence within 1 standard hour." "You cannot dictate to emperors," Vorak snarled, though his defiance rang hollow given his immobilized state. "I have no intention of dictating," Cairo replied, "but I will establish boundaries. The era of unchecked imperial expansion ends today." He stood from the throne, though the connection remained, a subtle glow surrounding him, indicating his ongoing link to the Terra Mind. He walked to where Mira lay on the ice, kneeling beside her. "You knew," he said softly. "You knew this would happen." Mira smiled, her star eyes dimming. "The Ilari see patterns, Cairo Ven. We saw humanity's pattern long ago, their sacrifice, their patience, their hope that someone worthy would one day sit upon the throne, not to rule, but to remember." "Can you be healed?" he asked, noting the severity of her injuries. "My physical form has served its purpose," she replied. "But the Ilari consciousness lives on in the patterns between stars. I will watch what you build, heir of Earth." Her form seemed to dissolve into points of light, rising toward the open ceiling and dispersing among the stars, returning to the patterns she had studied for so long. Cairo turned to Tirael, who had been watching the exchange with an unreadable expression. "And you, Empress, what do you choose now?" "Choose," she repeated. "What choice remains? You hold all power." "No," Cairo corrected. "I hold all responsibility. The choice of how to use your influence within new boundaries, that remains yours." Tirael studied him, her predatory eyes searching for deception and finding none. "You truly don't seek to rule." "I seek to preserve," Cairo replied. "As humanity did before. The throne doesn't elevate those who sit upon it. It reminds them to kneel before something greater than power." One by one, the 10 emperors were brought to the chamber of the White Throne. Some came raging, others calculating, a few in solemn acceptance of changed circumstances. Vorak remained defiant to the end, threatening vengeance even as the futility of such threats became increasingly apparent. The gathering was unlike any in galactic history. 10 of the most powerful beings in known space, standing before a throne none of them could claim. Facing a former archiver who spoke with the authority of an ancient power reawakened. "The rules are simple," Cairo explained, standing beside rather than sitting upon the white throne. "Imperial expansion ends. Protected worlds are re-established. Planets where developing species will be allowed to evolve without interference. Technology sharing will be managed through a new galactic council where all species, not just the dominant empires, have representation." "And if we refuse?" asked the gaseous emperor, his containment apparatus hovering ominously. "You won't be destroyed," Cairo assured them. But you will be contained. The defense network now controls all hyperspace routes, all communication systems, all weapons platforms derived from human technology. Your empires can prosper within their current boundaries, but they cannot conquer. You speak of choice while giving us none. Terail observed, though without the bitterness of the others. I speak of balanced choices, Cairo corrected. For too long, the choice has been conquer or be conquered. That binary ends today. The crystalline emperor's surface rippled with patterns of deep blue, a sign of thoughtful consideration in his species. What assurance do we have that this power won't corrupt you as it would any of us? None, Cairo admitted, except this. I don't rule alone. At his words, the holographic form of Unit 17 appeared, along with dozens of other projections, each representing a different aspect of the Terra mind, from custodial intelligences to data archives to defense systems. The Terra mind is a collective consciousness, Cairo explained. It includes the wisdom and ethical frameworks of humanity at their height, preserved and evolved over millennia of dormancy. I am merely its interface, its connection to the present. And the throne? Asked another emperor. Will you pass this power to your descendants? Create a new dynasty above our own? No, Cairo said firmly. The air protocol was designed for this moment, not for perpetuity. When balance is restored, when the cycle of conquest is truly broken, the defense network will return to dormancy. The White Throne will await another awakening, only if needed. The emperors exchanged glances, calculating new realities and possibilities. Some saw opportunity in the changed circumstances, a chance to develop their civilizations internally rather than through endless expansion. Others saw only constraint, the clipping of imperial wings. This new galactic council, Terail said, breaking the tense silence. Who will lead it? It will have no single leader, Cairo replied. But it needs founders, those who understand both the old ways and the possibility of new ones. He met her gaze directly. Your experience would be valuable, Empress Terail. You've seen both sides of this moment. Terail's scales shifted slightly, a subtle indication of surprise in her species. You would trust me after I tried to claim the throne's power? You fought Vorex's warriors to give me time, Cairo reminded her. In the moment of choice, you chose right. The gathering continued for hours as details were negotiated, boundaries established, and a new framework for galactic relations constructed. Not all the emperors accepted the changes willingly, but all recognized the reality of their situation. The defense network's control was absolute, but not oppressive. Imperial citizens would barely notice the transition, except for the cessation of conquest. When the formal agreements were completed, recorded, and transmitted throughout imperial space, the emperors departed one by one, returning to worlds where they still ruled, but within new limitations. Only Terail remained, watching as Cairo stood gazing up at the stars through the chamber's open ceiling. What will you do now, heir of Earth? She asked, using the title that was already spreading throughout the galaxy. Rebuild this world, he replied. Not as it was, but as a center for the Council, neutral ground where all can come in peace. And the legends? Terail pressed. The stories say humanity didn't die but departed. Will they return now that you've awakened their systems? Cairo was silent for a long moment. The Terra mind contains coordinates, locations beyond the galaxy where generation ships were sent. But whether humans survive there, whether they would choose to return, those are questions for another time. He turned to face her fully. The immediate task is to break the cycle, to ensure that if humanity returns, they find a galaxy where the mistakes of the past haven't been endlessly repeated. Terail nodded, understanding dawning in her predatory eyes. Not conquest, but preservation. Not power, but responsibility. Exactly. Cairo agreed. The White Throne doesn't elevate its occupant. It connects them to something greater than themselves. He gestured to the throne, still pulsing with subtle energy, That's why all emperors bow before it, not from fear or subjugation, but from recognition. It represents the moment when a civilization chose to preserve rather than destroy, even at the cost of their own continued existence. Terrail considered his words, then did something unprecedented in imperial history. She knelt, not in submission, but in respect. Earth, she said simply, acknowledging what the throne represented. Cairo nodded, accepting her understanding. Earth, he echoed. Not a place to rule from, but a memory to preserve. A pattern to restore when balance is lost. Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance, now connected by the reawakened network of humanity's legacy. And somewhere among those patterns, Cairo thought he could almost see Mira's star eyes watching, witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in a story far older than any empire. The White Throne stood as it had for millennia, bearing a single word that was no longer just a name, but a promise: Earth. Throughout the galaxy, on countless worlds and stations, beings of all species witnessed the changes rippling outward from Sol 3. Imperial warships powered down their weapons, planetary shields reconfigured to defensive patterns only. Communication channels opened between worlds long isolated by Imperial decree. And everywhere, the same message appeared, translated into every known language, displayed on every connected system. The children of the stars have wandered long enough. The time has come to restore balance. On protected worlds, where developing civilizations had cowered under imperial shadow, skies cleared as threatening fleets withdrew. On imperial capitals, citizens watched in awe as ancient systems activated, revealing technologies long forgotten or suppressed. In the chambers of imperial governance, new voices were suddenly heard, representatives of species long considered too insignificant for consultation. The cycle that had led to the final judgment had been broken, not through destruction, but through remembrance, not through conquest, but through connection. And on a once frozen world now slowly warming under the care of advanced terraforming systems, Cairo Ven stood beside the White Throne, no longer sitting upon it, but guarding what it represented. Not a seat of power, but a reminder of responsibility. Not a symbol of dominion, but a connection to a legacy of protection. Earth was reborn, not as an empire, but as a memory. A standard against which all who sought power would be measured. A throne before which even emperors would bow, not in fear or submission, but in recognition of a simple truth. True power lies not in what one can destroy, but in what one chooses to preserve.